Is the Quran falsifiable and therefore true? Let's check it out.
Let's talk about the idea of falsification, okay? It's very important when having discourse and trying to prove things true that you know what it means for something to be falsifiable. So I'm going to go through a quick example. If I say I have a zebra in my backyard, that is falsifiable because I can turn on my camera and I can show you the zebra. I don't actually have one. If I told you I have a dream about a unicorn, that's not falsifiable because it's something that's non-tangible, right? So the Quran, being something in our tangible universe, the Quran as a book, as a mushaf, that is falsifiable. How is it falsifiable? All we have to do is get another man who wrote a book like it, talking about society and laws and theology and doing it in a beautiful linguistic way and just meeting all the basic things we can observe about the Quran. Just find another man who did the same thing, and the Quran is false. So that's how you falsify things. Hope that makes sense.
Okay, the question is the Quran falsifiable? Because if it's falsifiable, then you can prove that the claims are true. And is it falsifiable based on its aesthetic form? And the answer to that, no matter which way you slice it, is no. It is not falsifiable based on its aesthetic form. Now, there's a debate in philosophy whether an aesthetic form of something is subjectively beautiful or whether it is objectively and inherently beautiful. In other words, what the claim is that you cannot produce a work of literature in its theological concepts, in its beauty, in its prose, in its poetry, in its form. You cannot produce something aesthetically as appealing and beautiful as the Quran. And if you could, it would prove the Quran to be false.
In 1400 years, no one has been able to do that, and that's how we know the Quran is true.
Well, the problem with that is, in philosophy, aesthetics, if aesthetic beauty is subjective, in other words, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, well, then the Quran is not falsifiable because we could produce a work of literature that rivals the aesthetic form of the Quran, but you will reject it as being a rival or on par with the Quran because your personal preference will not allow you to accept it as being a rival form of aesthetic in beauty. However, what if aesthetics in its form are objectively beautiful? Right? So, in other words, is beauty inherent to the object itself and not the way the object is perceived? Well, even if that's the case, the Quran is still not falsifiable by the claim of aesthetic beauty, aesthetic form. Why? Because if beauty is inherent to the object itself, then anything that is inherently beautiful and objectively so rivals the Quran. The Quran does not surpass another work of literature that also is inherently beautiful. The Quran will not surpass any other object that is inherently beautiful if aesthetic form is objectively beautiful. So either way, the Quran, based on the claim that its aesthetic form rivals no other, is not falsifiable. It's the same as saying my wife is the most beautiful person in the world and there's no conclusion. Provide a woman more beautiful than my wife and you will prove that my wife is not the most beautiful person in the world. Well, she is objectively beautiful, okay? That's an objective reality. She is beautiful because she is inherently beautiful, but you could probably produce another woman who you could also say is inherently beautiful. So she is not superior in beauty, but she is superior in beauty to me because her aesthetic form is subjectively beautiful. And you could provide somebody who is objectively as beautiful, but I will, in my subjective personal preference, not accept the superiority or even the equality of this other person as being just as beautiful. So the Quran is not falsifiable based on this presupposition here.